Out in the vast wheat fields of southwest Kansas, near the rich rangelands of the Panhandle country, the country that has been called the breadbasket of the world, the growl of diesel engines and the clang of drill pipe override the peace and quiet of the countryside. Here a new hole is being drilled down into the earth, down more than a half-mile underground to tap a great resource, natural gas, the most modern of all fuels. This new well is cutting back through history, back to the days before man even appeared on Earth, back countless centuries to prehistoric monsters and giant birds, huge ferns and great trees buried in the silt of swamps and inland seas. As eons passed, pressure and heat transformed these animals and plants into what we know today as petroleum and natural gas. During this evolution, huge upheavals created reservoirs that captured the petroleum and gas. It is into one of these reservoirs, the Hugoton field, that this rotary drill will bite. But how gas was originally formed is of only passing interest to the drilling crew. Their real interest is to bring in another producing gas well. Their job is a job of today, a job that requires teamwork of the highest order. There can be no lost motion here. Every move counts. The driller, quarterback of the team, paces every operation. String after string is lowered into the hole until finally the Kelly is set. The rotary table begins to turn and drilling is again underway. Teamwork will bring in this new well. The same kind of American teamwork that has inspired the growth of the Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company from its very beginning. Over 2 decades ago, forward-thinking men knew of the mineral wealth under the soil of this range and wheatland. They knew that it was a mineral resource that could be of untold value to millions of people. A group of young men with nothing more than vision and courage banded together to form an independent pipeline company, pioneers of the first long-distance pipeline into the Middle West. They took leases on the richest acreage, drilled wells and laid gathering lines. Heavy engines were installed to bring natural gas to a vast new area of homes and industries. They brought others into this new venture. Some of them worked on the wells, some on the pipeline. Others invested their savings to give the new company working capital, funds to buy pipe and equipment. They pushed the new pipeline across the heart of America and built it into a huge system that now pumps over 600 million cubic feet of gas every 24 hours. Serves 6.5 million people and has become a key source of fuel for the industrial Midwest. Today, the Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company is a strong, healthy, $300 million independent operation, representing the trust of thousands of investors and rewarding the vision of those who first planned a long-distance pipeline. The operation of a long-distance pipeline demands a heavy investment in a multitude of specialized equipment. At Liberal, Kansas, gas is brought together from the wells throughout the Hugoton Panhandle fields in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. In some cases, 26-inch diameter gathering lines transport gas from fields 130 miles away. At Liberal, the gas is cleaned of the dust and dirt brought up from the wells by passing it through a bath of oil in these large vessels. Scrubbers, the gas men call them. Then, banks of 1,000 to 2,000 horsepower engines pick up the gas and build it up to pressures as high as 800 or 900 pounds to the square inch, pumping a volume of gas equivalent in fuel value to 600 cars of coal every 24 hours. At Liberal, natural gasoline, an important component of automobile fuels, together with other chemicals, are removed. Then, the gas is cooled for its trip eastward. From Liberal, the high-pressure gas moves out through the main pipeline. Like a railroad, the line has its own right-of-way. And like a railroad, the right-of-way must be inspected constantly. Nearly anything that might threaten damage to the pipeline can be spotted from a low, slow-flying airplane. In more rugged sections, it's necessary to check the right-of-way on foot. The pipe is usually buried below plow depth, at least 40 inches, where it is unaffected by seasonal freeze and thaw. About every 80 miles, the gas pressure must be boosted. Lewisburg Compressor Station, south of Kansas City, is one of 12 on the main line. And so the line pushes on eastward, cutting through hills, swamps, ravines, rocky country. It shoots a lateral out here to serve first one town and then another. Over or under, it crosses the Missouri River, the Mississippi, the Illinois, the Wabash, the Maumee. Finally, the Panhandle Pipeline, having crossed more than 1/3 of the continent, pushes into Ohio, Michigan, and Canada. The pioneers who started the Panhandle Eastern Pipeline strove to bring a fuel that was clean, efficient, and cheap to the homes and industries of millions of people. They built a pipeline, buried it in a ditch over 1,400 miles long, and started a construction program that is still going on today. Now, laying a pipeline is a big job. Some of the tools have changed in recent years, but actually the job remains the same: to run miles of continuous steel pipe across the surface of our Earth. It requires careful planning to overcome every difficulty the terrain of our country can present. Rock, steep hillside, shifting soil, swamps, and once in a while, firm earth for easy going. The pipe is welded together, wrapped and coated against corrosion. Lowered carefully into the ditch, the pipe is buried beneath a protective covering of soil. When a pipeline like Panhandle meets a river like the Mississippi, pipelining becomes an operation requiring the highest level of engineering and construction techniques. The pipeline must be anchored securely on the bottom. It must be protected against soil erosion on the banks or from floods that might wash it away. It takes money, imagination, and a high degree of skill to put thousands of tons of steel together into a high-pressure system carrying hundreds of millions of cubic feet of gas. Those early pioneers probably never realized how large an undertaking they were starting. But they did know that natural gas was a fuel that not only would be in demand by millions of householders, but also should be useful in a wide variety of industries. Brick plants in Missouri, steel mills and tractor plants in Illinois, glass plants in Indiana that now buy huge volumes of Panhandle gas. Farmers dry alfalfa with natural gas heat. Less vitamin loss makes better feed for their stock. In the past 20 years, natural gas has become an important factor in our basic industrial and domestic economy. Today, the Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company serves the heart of the greatest industrial area in the world. brings natural gas into a region that contributes nearly every kind of product to the world economy. It helps make everything from steel pipe to potato chips. It heats our homes using simple controls that maintain room temperatures at an even, healthy level. It cooks our food, again, with constantly accurate control. It provides an inexpensive and instantaneous source of hot water. At home and at work, natural gas is doing 1,001 jobs. Jobs that in most cases can be done by other fuels, but natural gas is chosen because it's clean and efficient and cheap. The foresight that inspired the construction of this independent long-distance pipeline was justified only a few short years after its inception. Competing on a free market, the demand for natural gas achieved a healthy growth in proper relation to the value of other fuels. In 1938, wholesale natural gas was 28 cents, wholesale coal was 17 cents, and wholesale fuel oil 26 cents. But also in 1938, a concept of federal regulation was adopted that has now depressed pipeline gas prices far below the cost of competitive fuels. If this concept continues, it may well stimulate the demand for natural gas to a point where it can never be fully satisfied. Because it has become the cheapest of all fuels, every home and every industry today wants more natural gas. The Federal Power Commission has directed that a pipeline company's charges for gas be fixed on the basis of the original cost of that company's plant and property. Now, unlike most other pipeline companies which purchase all of their gas from others, Panhandle owns outright nearly 50% of its gas reserves. Being a pioneer, it obtained its gas leasehold properties and built its first facilities at a very low cost, far less than their value today. So that in contrast to other mining and drilling operations, Panhandle does not benefit from the present-day value of its gas-producing properties. As a result, it receives little or nothing for the gas from its own wells. But this rate-fixing policy based on original cost is not limited alone to the gas fields. In the same way, this concept in actual operation depresses the value of the company's transmission facilities far below their actual worth. The application of this theory of original cost, accompanied by accumulated depreciation charges, has brought the value of older pipeline properties down to the point where, even though they are being used day in and day out, a disproportionately low return on them as an investment is allowed. 10 years ago, a pipeline company bought 2.5 lengths of transmission pipe for the amount that it takes to buy one today. Yet the Federal Power Commission gives no recognition to this increased cost of construction in evaluating the older properties. These unsound policies, as applied to the older lines, have depressed gas prices unreasonably and have disregarded healthy competition with other fuels, all at the expense of those who introduced a totally new supply source of fuel. This attitude of the Commission must be of serious concern to all those who have invested in natural gas pipeline companies. The Commission, by setting low prices that have no relation to real values, created an abnormally huge demand for natural gas that can probably never be met in full. To meet this demand in part, the pipeline companies must seek out new sources of natural gas and must use every possible method to expand existing facilities. For instance, the underground storage of natural gas, already an established practice in Ohio. Just after World War II, Panhandle joined in a program for storing its gas in Michigan. The Michigan Gas Storage Company was organized as a venture of Consumers Power Company and the Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company. This storage program benefited not only the 300,000 customers of the Consumers Power Company, but all the other homes and industries on the Panhandle system as well. In summer, when the communities all through the company's system require less gas, the Michigan gas storage fields receive huge quantities of the surplus. Then, when winter creates a heavy house heating load on the Panhandle line, nearly its whole capacity can be devoted to those communities without storage facilities. Michigan Gas Storage Company supplies practically all of the consumer's power company needs. Although this storage program has aided the company in meeting an insatiable demand for natural gas, Panhandle has found it necessary to increase its transmission capacity. But there is a limit to the amount that can be withdrawn from any reservoir. Looking far into the future, Panhandle has gained control of a vast new source of natural gas on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. A new, large-diameter, long-distance pipeline is bringing this gas almost from the Mexican border to connect with the Panhandle system in central Illinois. All of this expansion of the Panhandle system, underground storage, which in winter can further supplement pipeline deliveries, the addition of new transmission capacity, the addition of new sources of natural gas. With all of this expansion, Panhandle still is confronted with the Federal Power Commission's unrealistic evaluation of natural gas properties and its complete disregard of the rising cost of other fuels. This type of federal regulation is causing another condition that may adversely affect the future of the communities dependent upon the pipeline by diverting potential supplies away from the pipeline to other uses. Natural gas within the past decade has come to be an invaluable raw material for chemical industries that have located right in the heart of the gas fields. For example, natural gas produces highly important ingredients for automobile tires. When gas is burned, the resulting products of combustion can be made into dry ice. Natural gas provides the base for new surface coatings, enamels, and paints. It has made possible new chemical yarns that weave into fabrics with new qualities and higher standards of use. The very same natural gas chemicals that produce fabrics also provide the raw materials for a wide variety of plastic products. And yet, these chemical industries offer to pay a higher price for natural gas at its source than the regulated pipeline company is permitted to realize from interstate sales of gas after transporting it several hundred miles. As a result, distant markets served by an interstate natural gas pipeline will, to an increasing extent, have to compete for natural gas supplies with local intrastate markets in the producing areas. Federal regulation must eventually recognize this fact. In contrast to federal regulation, however, state regulation of natural gas facilities has been more practical and has recognized the fair value of a company's property in determining just and reasonable rates. Thus, these actions by the state regulatory bodies have somewhat tempered the effect of the unsound Federal Power Commission's rate-fixing policy. In some cases, retail prices have been set at 2 to 4 times the wholesale price for gas from the pipeline. Yet such gas still competes favorably with other fuels. In some areas, it is also believed that this federal policy is causing a waste of gas by setting too low a price on the gas at the well. To correct this condition, some of the gas-producing states have established a minimum price at which gas can be taken from the ground. These minimum prices have been approved by the United States Supreme Court as being in the interest of a sound conservation policy. These efforts by individual states are indications that unrealistic policies of regulation will not continue. For when it is realized that the natural gas industry is now supplying nearly 1/4 of the nation's fuel, it becomes unnecessary to question the importance of this industry to the nation's economy But since the state commissions have no jurisdiction over interstate sales of gas by the pipelines, the soundness of the state's rate-making policies based on the fair value of a company's properties must be made apparent to the Federal Power Commission before the present inequitable situation can be corrected. Panhandle believes that intelligent regulation must be and will be brought to the whole industry so that natural gas may assume its proper competitive position with other fuels. For without a revision of these unsound regulatory policies, our nation will be guilty of dissipating one of its most cherished natural resources. Thus, Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company, with 2 decades of pioneering behind it, continues to pioneer, firm in the belief that eventually more intelligent regulation will give the natural gas industry its rightful place in our national economy.